Hey, good morning. A few months ago, I was asked by Dorothy if I could give a speech at this Black Symposium. And I told her I would consider it. Not a hard, fast yes or no, but thanks for asking. Here's my contact information. And it was quite an honor, but I figured it was so far away that the invitation would get swept under the rug and hopefully forgotten. But I received an email from the CK Black History Society tracking me down, asking me to speak at this engagement. So here I am, and I have to be honest. I love public speaking about things that I'm well versed in, that have concrete evidence and things that I can refer to. And I was hoping to gather this information, but have my dad present it, but he passed away 3 months ago. But this topic terrified me. I was asked to speak about my family, the Levi family, and that's me, specifically about the Levi family that lived here in southwestern Ontario in little old Chatham, down here on the East End on Hislop Street from the Black community. And why did it terrify me? Because I know nothing about this side of the family. I felt there's lack of information on us. There's no go-to books, it's just oral history from very, very limited family members. And I mean not many family members at all. So here I am today to talk about my family, my paternal side, the Levis. So I'm here to give you some insight into my family that was part of the larger Black community here in Chatham, Ontario. And as I mentioned before, I was asked to speak about the Levis from Hislop Street. And to tell you the truth, I thought that this was a very specific request, considering what I thought the CK Black Historical Society would want, a speech on a prominent figure from the community, maybe someone that was publicly acknowledged for their contributions in the community. Then the more I thought about what I was going to say to you all, I began to understand the richness about learning about Black families from the past, who shaped the Black neighborhoods, who worked in the community to contribute to this growing town, who were Black role models from the neighborhood that local Black youth could relate to and who they could talk to, who protected and stood up for their local neighborhood families struggling to make ends meet with those who live next door at a more personal level and not on a global or national scale. The folks that just lived here in the community who were able to benefit what their forefathers did to enjoy and live in this town. So who shaped this Black woman standing in front of you? And I'm here to share that the Levi family was part of the East End village. So all of my information that I have is oral, so I hope you enjoyed this little snippet of my family who contributed to the Chatham Black community and still do to this day. So my name is Andrea Miller. I was born and raised in Chatham to William Francis Levi and Bonnie Joy Wilson. I went to our local schools, John N. Gibbon and Chatham-Kent Public Secondary School. I went on to graduate from the University of Windsor with a degree in sociology and criminal justice. I met my husband, Anthony Miller, during my university career, and we will be married 22 years in October. We have 3 children, Shalia, Phoenix, and Liam. And we currently reside here in Chatham, ironically in the East End, a block away from Hislop Street. The Levi family is the paternal side of my family. My great-grandfather was William Francis Levi I, and he was born in August 26, 1876, and raised in Montreal, Quebec. My great-grandmother was Lillian Astwood. She was born in 1882 and lived in Warwich, Bermuda. In 1912, she boarded a boat from Hamilton, Bermuda, arriving at port in New York. From there, she ended up at 2884 Drolet Street in Montreal, Quebec. And she was a 5'4" mulatto with black hair. At some point, Lillian and William met up in Montreal, Quebec and married there. From this union, they had 3 children, Lillian May, born May 20, 1914, fondly known as May. William James, born December 9, 1960, fondly known as James. And my grandfather, Wesley Wilfred, born February 15, 1918. From here, they traveled to Dresden, Ontario, where they made their homestead out on the 11th concession, 2 doors down from the iconic Union Baptist Church. According to handwritten records, my great-grandparents, William Francis, died June 22nd, 1943, and Lillian May died June 3rd, 1944. As for their children, I do not have much information on my great-aunt May, nor great-uncle James. According to handwritten records, May married Roy Anderson in December of 1949. They moved to Detroit and made their homestead there. James married Velma Ladd on July 9, 1949, and moved out of Chatham. My grandfather Wesley remained on the homestead in Dresden. My grandfather Wesley served in the Canadian Army in World War II. He was enlisted as a gunner January 10, 1942. During his tour, he was also a chef with the Army. He was discharged January 8, 1944, returning back to Dresden. Wesley met and married Olive Crosby. They married July 20th, 1946 in Chatham. They remained and lived at the homestead in Dresden, where they had 3 of their 4 children. My dad, William Francis, was born February 9, 1947. James Beverly, born April 26, 1948, and Sharon Ann, born May 18, 1949. As oral record has it, the family lived on the homestead from 1947 to 1951. Here, there was no running water and no electricity. My dad recollects that they had to go to the next door neighbor, Bill and Madeline Chambers, to pump water for their property. During this time, Wesley and Olive raised chickens and pigs on Union Line. Pigs were raised, then slaughtered for their own personal consumption. The slaughtering was done by the family, including the packing of pigs with salt in barrels and wringing the necks of chickens. At this time, Olive stayed home to raise the 3 kids. Wesley had a job at the sugar beet factory in Wallaceburg. In 1951, he got a job in Chatham working for the city, so the family made the big move into town. The family moved to Chatham, moving into 14 Hislop Street, a 2-story house with a lilac bush out front and blackberry trees in the back. The mortgage on the house was held by Frank Crosby, who was Olive's father. At this time, Hislop Street was a residential neighborhood with houses spanning from Park Street to Park Avenue. The opposite side of Hislop Street was vacant, and it was owned by the city. And it was here that the city stored raw materials. Now the 4th child, Ethel Maud, the baby girl, was born in Chatham, October 10, 1952. And at this time, it made their family complete. And the Levi family was the 2nd Black family to move onto Hislop. Life was different here in the city, according to my dad. The house on Hislop had running water and electricity. The neighborhood was full of homes with families. Some families on Hislop included the Matthews, Wright, Looms, Browns, Travis, Davis, Kibbles, Summerfields, Stonefish, and Needhams. The Turchicks and the local corner store was Shipanowski's Variety Store. So my grandpa Wesley held many jobs. He worked as a porter on the railroad for a short period of time. After the railroad, he also worked for the city of Chatham for the rest of his life. He drove the garbage trucks, he drove the sweeper truck, and the water trucks. For a time, he worked at the cemetery digging graves. Dad could recollect many times he would accompany his dad and help him dig. Aunt Sharon said they used to go to the cemetery to have picnics because it was so quiet and peaceful. As my grandfather aged, he had difficulty with his health, and he retired working as security in Wallaceburg. Now, Grandpa Wesley was a homebody when he was not working. He took care of the children and brought his culinary skills home doing the majority of the cooking. Once in Chatham, the family was a two-income family. Grandma Olive worked at St. Joseph's Hospital in the cafeteria, and she also worked as an aide at the Southwestern Regional Center. As for all four kids, they attended Queen Elizabeth School for elementary school. Bill, my dad, graduated from Queen Elizabeth, then went to McGregor Secondary School for grade 9 and 10, then to Chatham-Kent Secondary School for grades 11 and 12. He took gymnastics, focusing on the pommel horse, bar, and floor. And he also played baseball. James attended both high schools, John McGregor and Chatham-Kent Secondary School, and he played football. And he also followed in his father's footsteps and joined the Army. Aunt Sharon also attended Queen Elizabeth, and she attended the same two high schools as her older brothers. And Ethel, the baby, the one born here in Chatham, she attended Queen Elizabeth, then attended St. Pius for high school, then attended Chatham Collegiate Institute to finish off high school. She then attended the University of London. The kids had a typical childhood, attending school. Bill and Jimmy, well known in the community. Bill was known as Butch, and the boys could fight you in a hot minute. Their reputation was you don't mess with the Levis. They played in the neighborhood and had to come back when the streetlights come on, as I still do with my children today. My grandfather Wesley died January 21st, 1967 at the age of 48. And my grandmother Olive died September 20th, 1990 at the age of 65. Now all of the kids remained at the Chatham home until they married their respective spouses and had families of their own. Dad, Bill, married Bonnie, and from this union they had myself, Andrea, Heather, Wesley, Melanie, and Adam. My Aunt Sharon married Earl Knight, and from this union they had Howard, Kevin, and Tanya. James was an Army man and died while on active duty on January 18, 1970. Ethel married Dennis Simmons, and from this union they had Tamara. That is the extent of the immediate Levi family that lived on Hislop Street. We are a small, productive family within the Black community here. So it was a shocker when I began working at Uncle Tom's Cabin Historic Site in the summers during my university career that I began to hear tidbits that I was related to people in the Dresden area. But I assumed it was through my mother's side, as the last name Carter was her people, so I didn't ask any questions. Then one day someone mentioned that Bruce Carter was a relative of mine on my dad's side. So when I asked my dad about it, he was like, maybe way back when, but he didn't know and he wasn't too sure. And that was that. And when I asked Bruce about it, I got roughly the same answer. Oh, I don't know, we're related somehow. And the matter was not pursued. And honestly, I did not investigate as there was no one else to get the history from. I only had my dad and two aunts. There appeared to be minimal communication between my grandfather and his siblings, and my grandfather having died so young, a lot of that information was taken with him. So really the buck stopped at my dad and two aunts. As I worked at a tour guide at Uncle Tom's Cabin, in 1996, a gentleman came in and he said he was Thomas Edward Levi Sr. So of course we started talking. Unfortunately, with my lack of knowledge about my family, we could not connect if there was one. We did write back and forth, but still could not make any type of connection. He did come to my wedding, and that was the end of that. Then 6 years ago, someone by the name of Ron Levi reached out to me through Facebook. He was also from Michigan. He believed us to be his kinfolk. He had been searching the Levi family tree and believed he had finally found the last connection, the Levis from Canada. And he was able to share with me the family tree and how we were all connected. And just like that, we were linked to hundreds of other Levis stateside that we did not know existed. Well, we expected there were Levi's out there, but did not know how we were connected or how to get connected. So now we've been to a Levi reunion that took place in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 2009, and a second family reunion where they came to Canada in 2016 to get to know and meet their small unit of Levi family. There are still more Levi's to meet and so much more information to gather about my descendants. I hope you enjoyed this snippet of the life of the Levi family. I'd like to thank the Chatham-Kent Black Historical Society for this opportunity. Thank you very much.